Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The crowd inside the elegant Corinthos compound sat in stunned silence as the minister's voice faltered mid-sentence. The warm glow of the string lights flickered as if reacting to the tension in the air. Sonny stood tall in his tuxedo, his gaze steady on Carly, who looked radiant in her white gown. The ceremony had been smooth until that very moment when a deep voice called out from the back, "Stop the wedding!" Gasps filled the air, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. A tall, mysterious man stepped out of the shadows, his face partially hidden beneath the brim of his dark hat. The security team moved quickly, but Sonny raised a hand, signaling them to hold back. "Who the hell are you?" Sonny demanded, his voice low but commanding. The man removed his hat, revealing a face that carried the kind of pain only years of secrets could cause. "You don't remember me, do you, Sonny?" His tone was calm, almost eerie, and Carly instinctively stepped closer to Sonny, clutching her bouquet tightly. Jason, who had returned to Port Charles just days earlier, instinctively moved beside Sonny, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "You've got 5 seconds to explain why you're here," Jason warned, his voice sharp as steel. The man smirked slightly, then looked directly at Carly. "I'm here because you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life," he said coldly. The crowd murmured again, and Olivia, sitting in the front row, whispered to Sam, "Who is this guy?" Carly straightened her shoulders, refusing to let fear show. "You have no right to interrupt our wedding," she snapped. "Whatever business you have with Sonny, take it outside." The stranger stepped forward, and the security guards tensed. "Oh, it's my business with Sonny, all right," he said slowly, "but it's also about you, Carly. Both of you have been living a lie." Sonny's jaw tightened. "Enough games," he said, his voice dark with warning. "Say what you came to say." The man hesitated for a moment, then reached into his coat pocket. Jason's hand went to his gun, but the stranger lifted his other hand in surrender. "Relax, Morgan. It's not a weapon," he said. He pulled out an envelope and tossed it onto the altar steps. It landed with a soft thud. "What's that?" Carly demanded. "Proof," the man said simply. The officiant quietly stepped back, unsure whether to continue or flee. Sonny looked at Jason, then bent down and picked up the envelope. Inside were old photographs, hospital documents, and a DNA report. Sonny frowned as he scanned the first page, but when his eyes reached the end, his expression hardened into disbelief. This can't be right," he muttered. Carly's voice trembled slightly. "What is it, Sonny?" The man's voice broke through the stunned silence. "That document proves that I am the son of Adela Corinthos," he said. The audience gasped again. "Your mother," he continued, staring directly at Sonny. "Which makes me your brother." The words hit Sonny like a bullet. He froze, unable to speak. Carly's eyes widened, her mind racing. "That's impossible," she said. "Sonny's mother, she never had another child." The man nodded slowly. "She did. And I was the one she gave away. I've spent years searching for proof, and now I have it." He pointed toward the DNA results in Sonny's hand. "That report says we share the same blood, the same mother. You and me, Michael Corinthos and Gabriel Santiago." Sonny's hand trembled slightly as he looked back at the paper. "If this is true," he said quietly, "then why come here now? Why wait until my wedding day?" Gabriel's eyes burned with fury. "Because I wanted you to know before you tied yourself to another lie." Carly blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Gabriel turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "You think you know Sonny? You think you know the man you're marrying?" He paused, then said darkly, "He's been keeping another secret from you, one that could destroy everything." Carly's grip on her bouquet loosened, petals falling to the floor. "Stop it," she said, her voice rising. "You're lying." Gabriel shook his head slowly. "Am I?" Ask him about the night in Puerto Rico 15 years ago. Sonny's eyes widened slightly, and Carly saw the flicker of guilt flash across his face. "Sonny," she whispered, stepping back. "What happened that night?" Sonny opened his mouth to speak, but Gabriel interrupted. "He killed a man that night, a man who didn't deserve to die. And I was there. I saw it." The guests erupted into murmurs again, some standing, others whispering in disbelief. Dante, standing near the front, stepped forward. "You better explain yourself," he said to Gabriel, his badge glinting under the lights. "You're making a serious accusation." Gabriel smirked bitterly. "Oh, detective, it's not an accusation. It's the truth. The man Sonny killed was my father." Silence fell again, heavy and suffocating. Sonny's face went pale. "Your father?" he repeated. "Adela, she told me, she said your father died before she left Puerto Rico?" Gabriel interrupted. "No, Sonny. He died because of you. You shot him, thinking he was a threat to your mother, but he was trying to protect her. And I've lived every day since then waiting for the right moment to confront you." Carly's breath caught in her throat. "Sonny, is this true?" she asked, tears forming in her eyes. Sonny closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of his past pressing down on him. "I didn't know," he said finally, his voice breaking. "I didn't know who he was." Gabriel's face twisted with anger. "But you still pulled the trigger. You destroyed my family and left me to grow up alone. While you built an empire, I grew up with nothing." Jason stepped forward, his tone cautious but steady. "If what you're saying is true, why come now? What do you want?" Gabriel's eyes turned cold. "Justice," he said. "And maybe a little revenge." Carly turned to Sonny, tears now streaming down her face. "How many more secrets are there, Sonny? How many more lies?" Sonny tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. "Carly, please, don't," she said sharply. "Don't say another word." The minister quietly excused himself, sensing the ceremony was beyond repair. Guests began to whisper and edge toward the exits, but Dante held up a hand. "No one leaves until we get to the bottom of this," he said. Gabriel crossed his arms. "Oh, there's more to get to, detective. You see, Sonny didn't just kill my father, he also covered it up. With help from someone close to him." Everyone turned their eyes to Jason, who stood silently. Gabriel smirked. "You, Jason. You were there that night too, weren't you?" Jason's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "I was protecting Sonny," he said. "He didn't know who the man was. It was chaos." Gabriel laughed bitterly. "Of course you were. The loyal enforcer, always ready to clean up his messes. You both destroyed my life, and now you want to live happily ever after?" Carly's voice was trembling but fierce. "If this is true," she said to Gabriel, "why didn't you go to the police?" He looked at her, his expression softening for just a moment. "Because I wanted him to feel what I felt, betrayal, loss, pain. I wanted him to lose everything, just like I did." He turned to Sonny again. "You took my family from me, and now I've taken yours from you." Sonny's eyes flashed with anger. "You think this makes you better than me? You show up here, ruining lives, thinking it gives you peace?" Gabriel shook his head. "No. But it gives me justice." The tension in the air was unbearable, thick enough to choke on. Jason finally spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "If you want justice, take it through the law, not through vengeance." Gabriel's lips curled into a faint, bitter smile. "You think the law means anything in your world, Morgan?" "The law bends for Sonny Corinthos." Michael stepped forward from the crowd, his face pale. "Enough," he said. "You're standing here tearing our family apart, and for what? Revenge?" Gabriel looked at him with cold eyes. "You're his son, right? The one he abandoned and betrayed more than once? Tell me, how much do you really know about your father?" Michael's expression hardened. Enough to know that he's made mistakes, but he's still my dad. Gabriel chuckled darkly. Blind loyalty runs deep in this family. He turned toward Carly again. And what about you, Carly? Are you still going to marry him after everything you've heard? Carly stared at Sonny, torn between rage and heartbreak. I don't know anymore, she whispered. I thought I knew the man I was marrying, but now, her voice trailed off as she looked down, tears dripping onto her wedding gown. Sonny took a step forward. Carly, listen to me, he said softly. Whatever this man says, whatever happened in the past, it doesn't change what's between us. She looked up at him, eyes filled with pain. Doesn't it? Because I can't keep pretending that your secrets don't matter. Sonny swallowed hard, realizing that for the first time in years, he might truly lose her. I'll make it right, he said quietly. I'll face whatever comes. But please don't let him destroy what we've built. Gabriel's voice cut in sharply. You've already destroyed it yourself. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Dante stepped forward again, pulling out his phone. We're going to need to verify everything in those documents, he said. Until then, everyone stays put. Sonny nodded grimly, knowing that the damage was already done. Carly turned away from him, her shoulders trembling. I can't do this right now, she whispered, and she walked toward the mansion, leaving her bouquet behind on the floor. Sonny called out after her, but she didn't stop. Gabriel watched her go, a flicker of guilt flashing in his eyes before it vanished. You see, Sonny, he said quietly, now you know how it feels to lose everything in one night. Sonny turned slowly, his expression darkening. You got what you came for, he said. Now get out before I change my mind. Gabriel smiled faintly, tipping his hat back onto his head. We're not done, brother, he said. This is just the beginning. Then he turned and walked out, disappearing into the night. The guests murmured nervously, unsure of what to do, while Jason stood beside Sonny, silent but watchful. Sonny looked down at the crumpled papers in his hand, the proof of a past he couldn't outrun, and whispered to himself, Adela, what did you do? The lights dimmed as the guests began to leave, whispers echoing through the air. Jason finally broke the silence. You want me to find him? He asked. Sonny nodded slowly. Yeah. But not to hurt him. I need to know the truth. Jason placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll figure it out. Sonny nodded again, though his eyes remained distant, fixed on the door where Carly had disappeared. I just hope it's not too late, he said quietly. And somewhere out there in the shadows, Gabriel watched from a distance, a single tear rolling down his cheek as he whispered, It's never about revenge, brother. It's about truth. The air in the garden of the Port Charles Athletic Club was thick with a perfume of roses, gardenias, and unadulterated joy. Sunlight, filtered through the leaves of ancient oak trees, dappled the assembled guests in shifting patterns of gold and green. Every chair was filled, every face turned toward the flower-strewn archway under which Sonny Corinthos stood, a man transformed. The usual granite set of his jaw had softened into a look of such profound, vulnerable anticipation that it was almost disorienting to those who knew him as a force of nature, a power to be feared. Today, he was simply a man waiting for his future. At his side, his best man, Jason Morgan, offered a rare, almost imperceptible smile. It was a quiet signal of approval, of shared history, and of a hard-won peace that seemed, finally, to be within their grasp. In the front row, Sonny's mother, Mike Corbin's widow, wept silent, happy tears, while his children, Michael and Jocelyn, watched with beaming pride. It was a picture of familial unity, a testament to the fact that even the most fractured of lives could be pieced back together into something beautiful and whole. The soft, soaring notes of the wedding processional began, and a collective, quiet sigh went through the crowd. All heads turned. And there she was. Carly Corinthos, in a gown of ivory silk that seemed to capture the very sunlight, a vision of radiant, unstoppable love. Her walk was steady, her eyes locked on Sonny's, and in that gaze was 2 decades of history, a tempestuous ocean of passion, betrayal, separation, and an undeniable, magnetic pull that had always drawn them back to one another. This wasn't a young woman's naive dream, it was a mature, powerful choice to recommit to a love that had been tested by fire and had emerged stronger for it. She reached his side, and he took her hands, his thumbs stroking her knuckles. The world around them seemed to blur and fade. The officiant, a gentle-faced man who had known them both for years, began with a warm smile. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness and celebrate the union of Sonny and Carly. A union that many of you know has been a long time in the making, a story of resilience and a love that has endured." He spoke of second chances, of the strength found in forgiveness, and of building a future on the foundation of a shared past. The vows were exchanged, personal and heartfelt, each word a brick laid in the fortress of their new beginning. Sonny's voice, usually a gravelled command, was tender as he promised to be her shelter, her partner, her unwavering support. Carly's, often sharp and defiant, was thick with emotion as she vowed her loyalty, her love, and her forever. "If anyone present can show just cause why this man and this woman should not be joined in marriage," the officiant recited, the traditional, often ignored line rolling smoothly off his tongue, "let them speak now, or forever hold their peace." It was a formality. A beat of silence, filled only with the chirping of birds and the happy, expectant breathing of the guests. The officiant smiled, ready to move on to the pronouncement. Then, a voice cut through the tranquility, calm, yet carrying an unnerving, resonant weight from the back of the garden. "I can." The two words were not shouted, but they had the impact of a physical blow. A collective, sharp intake of breath swept through the rows of guests. Sonny's head snapped up, his body instantly coiling from grim to protector, his eyes narrowing as he searched for the source of the interruption. Carly's grip on his hands tightened, her face a mask of confusion and dawning anger. Jason was already on his feet, his posture shifting into that of a bodyguard, his gaze scanning for a threat. The crowd parted, a sea of bewildered faces turning to stare as a man stepped into the aisle. He was tall, dressed in an impeccably tailored, dark charcoal suit that spoke of money but not ostentation. He was perhaps in his late 50s or early 60s, with silver-streaked hair at his temples and a bearing that was both elegant and imposing. His face was lined with the evidence of a life fully lived, but it was his eyes that captured the attention. They were a piercing, intelligent blue, and they held a gravity that silenced the murmurs beginning to ripple through the assembly. He was a stranger to most, but there was an unsettling familiarity in his features, a ghost of a memory that no one could quite place. "Who the hell are you?" Sonny's voice was low, a controlled rumble of thunder, the old, dangerous persona surfacing through the groom's veneer. The man continued his slow, deliberate walk down the aisle until he was standing a mere 10 feet from the stunned couple. He didn't look at the guests, his focus was entirely on Sonny and Carly. "My name," he said, his voice calm and measured, devoid of malice but filled with an unshakable resolve, "is James Forsyth. And I am here because this marriage is based on a lie. A lie that, if allowed to continue, would be a profound injustice." Carly found her voice first, her temper flaring. "I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing, but you need to leave. Now." She looked past him, toward Jason, a clear signal to remove the man. Jason took a step forward, but James Forsyth raised a hand, not in threat, but in a gesture that demanded a moment. "What I have to say isn't for the whole world, Sonny. But it is for you, and for Carly. And it concerns the very foundation of your relationship. It concerns the paternity of one of your children." The garden went utterly silent. The birds seemed to have stopped singing. You could have heard a rose petal drop. Michael, sitting in the front row, stiffened, his own complicated paternity history flashing in his mind. Jocelyn looked from her mother to the stranger, her face pale with confusion. Sonny took a step forward, placing himself slightly in front of Carly. "You have 3 seconds to get to the point before you're removed," he said, each word a chip of ice. "The point," Forsyth said, his gaze shifting from Sonny's furious face to Carly's bewildered one, and then back, "is that your son, Morgan Corinthos, is not your son." A wave of gasps, louder this time, more shocked, echoed through the garden. Sonny looked as if he'd been struck. Morgan. His son. His vibrant, troubled, beloved boy who had been stolen from them too soon in a tragic accident. To drag his memory into this, on this day, was a sacrilege of the highest order. You're a sick man, Sonny snarled, the control in his voice beginning to fracture. Jason. I have the DNA tests, Forsyth interrupted, his voice still calm, but now laced with a steel that commanded attention. He didn't brandish papers, but the certainty in his tone was more powerful than any document. Run through 3 independent, reputable labs. All with the same result. The Y chromosome markers do not match yours, Sonny. Morgan was not your biological child. Carly let out a strangled cry. That's a lie! How dare you? Morgan was his son. You don't get to come here and desecrate my son's memory. Her voice broke, tears of rage and grief springing to her eyes. The horror of the accusation was secondary to the violation of her child's legacy. I am not desecrating his memory, Carly, Forsyth said, and his use of her first name was intimate, knowledgeable. I am trying to clarify it. For everyone. Who then? Sonny roared, the sound echoing in the quiet space. If this insane story has a point, who? Who was his father? James Forsyth took a deep breath, and for the first time, a flicker of something akin to pain crossed his composed features. He looked directly at Carly, his gaze intense, searching her face as if looking for a sign of recognition. It was me, he said, the words dropping into the silence like stones into a still pond. I am Morgan's biological father. The world stopped. For Carly, the sounds of the garden, the sight of the guests, the feel of the silk of her dress, everything receded into a dizzying, nauseating blur. She stared at the man, her mind racing, scrambling for purchase. It was impossible. A grotesque, cruel joke. She had never seen this man before in her life. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. It is, Forsyth insisted, his voice softening slightly, as if he understood the nuclear bomb he had just detonated. It was the summer of 2003. You and Sonny were separated. You were vulnerable, lost. We met at a charity gala in New York. You were there representing the Metro Court's interests. We talked for hours. You told me your life was a mess. I was a mess myself, grieving a profound loss. We found solace in each other. It was one night, Carly. A single night that I have never forgotten. Carly's blood ran cold. New York. The charity gala. A period of her life she had deliberately buried, a time of profound loneliness and despair after a brutal separation from Sonny. She had gone to the gala to feel something other than pain, to put on a brave face. The details were hazy, clouded by champagne and heartache. She remembered feeling adrift. She remembered a conversation with a kind, older, strikingly intelligent man. He had listened. He hadn't judged. The evening was a blur of music and forced smiles, and the later part of the night, a dark gap in her memory she had always attributed to drinking too much and the emotional turmoil of the time. She had woken up in her hotel room alone, with a vague, shame-filled recollection of a connection she knew was a mistake. Her face, always an open book, must have shown the dawning, horrifying realization. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her as pale as her wedding gown. Her knees felt weak. She looked from Forsyth's painfully earnest face to Sonny's, which was a terrifying canvas of shock, betrayal, and a fury so deep it was chilling. Carly? Sonny's voice was barely a whisper, but it was laced with a devastation that was more powerful than any shout. Is this true? Do you know this man? She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up. Her mind was a whirlwind of fragmented memories and a tidal wave of denial. It couldn't be. The timing. Morgan had been born the following spring. She had never, not for a single second, doubted that Sonny was his father. Morgan had his fire, his impulsivity, his heart. The diagnosis of bipolar disorder had only solidified their biological connection in her mind. It was a cornerstone of their shared history, of their grief. It can't be, she finally managed, her voice trembling. Morgan was yours, Sonny. He was yours. He had your eyes, your Phenotypes can be deceiving, Forsyth said, not unkindly. The science is unequivocal. I would not be here, disrupting this day, causing this pain, if I were not 100% certain. I have lived with this knowledge for years. I only recently acquired a sample of Morgan's DNA for comparison. When I saw the results, I knew I had a moral obligation to come forward. Moral obligation? Sonny laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think this is morality? To come to my wedding, to my son's memory, and do this? What is your game? What do you want? I want nothing from you, Forsyth said, his gaze steady. I am a very wealthy man. I have no interest in your money or your business. This is not about extortion. This is about the truth. My son, the son I never knew, is gone. I never got to hold him. I never got to hear his voice. I learned of his existence only through a private investigator I hired to look into your life after that night, a connection I couldn't forget. By the time I had the courage to dig deeper, it was too late. He was gone. His voice cracked, and for the first time, the polished facade broke, revealing a raw, genuine grief beneath. It was this crack, this glimpse of authentic pain, that made the impossible story feel terrifyingly plausible. I have spent the last few years mourning a child I never knew, he continued, composing himself. Watching from a distance. Seeing you all celebrate his life, mourn his death. And I was on the outside. A ghost. I couldn't live with the lie anymore. You, he said, looking at Sonny, have lost a son you believed was yours. I understand that pain is real. But I have also lost a son, and I have been denied the right to even acknowledge him. And you, his eyes returned to Carly, filled with a complex mixture of accusation and pity, you kept this from all of us. You built a life on a secret you didn't even know you were carrying. The accusation was the final straw for Carly. The shock began to recede, replaced by a white-hot, defensive fury. How dare you? I didn't know. Do you think if I had known, I would have? She trailed off, the implications crashing down on her. What would she have done? Told Sonny? A man whose pride and sense of family was everything? In the state their relationship was in then, it would have shattered them forever. It would have denied Morgan the father he adored. The wedding was forgotten. The guests were a silent, stunned audience to the unraveling of 2 decades of truth. Michael had risen to his feet, his arm around a weeping Jocelyn. He looked at his mother, his expression a torrent of conflicting emotions, sympathy, confusion, and a deep, protective anger toward the stranger. This changes nothing, Sonny said, his voice low and guttural, trying to reclaim control of a situation that had spiraled into chaos. Morgan was my son. I raised him. I loved him. I held him when he was born, and I mourned him when he died. A piece of paper from some lab doesn't change that. You are nothing to him. You were never anything to him. Biologically, that is incorrect, Forsyth replied, not backing down. And it changes everything. It changes Morgan's medical history. His bipolar disorder, it didn't come from you, Sonny. It came from me. My sister suffered from it severely. It changes the very narrative of his life. He was not a Corinthos by blood. He was a Forsyth. The name meant nothing to most, but to a few in the crowd, a flicker of recognition passed through their eyes. The Forsyths were old money, a powerful, reclusive family from upstate with interests in pharmaceuticals and private equity. It was a name that carried a different kind of weight than Corinthos. Get out, Sonny said, the words final and absolute. Get out of here before I do something we'll both regret. James Forsyth nodded slowly, as if he had expected nothing less. He had delivered his truth. The damage was done. He looked one last time at Carly, whose face was a mask of tear-streaked devastation, then turned and walked back up the aisle with the same measured pace with which he had entered. The crowd parted for him once more, their stares now filled with a mixture of horror and morbid fascination. He was gone, but his presence lingered like a poison in the air. The second he disappeared from view, the spell of silence broke. The garden erupted into a cacophony of frantic whispers and exclamations. The perfect, beautiful wedding was in ruins. Sonny stood frozen, his back to Carly, his shoulders rigid. He was a statue of betrayed fury. Carly reached a trembling hand out to touch his arm. Sonny. He flinched away from her touch as if burned. The small, instinctive rejection was more devastating than any shouted accusation. He didn't look at her. He couldn't. The wedding is over, he announced to no one and everyone, his voice hollow. Without another word, he turned and walked away, not toward the reception area, but toward the private path that led to the parking lot. Jason shot a worried look at Carly before following him, his role as protector and friend taking precedence. Carly was left standing alone under the arch of flowers, the abandoned bride in the center of a scandal. The beautiful dress that had felt like a suit of armor now felt like a shroud. Her children rushed to her side, Michael pulling her into a hug while Jocelyn clung to her arm, both trying to shield her from the prying eyes. "Mom, it's okay, we're here," Michael whispered, but his voice was strained. But it wasn't okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. The shocking secret had not just stopped a wedding, it had detonated a bomb at the core of their family, rewriting the past and casting a dark, uncertain shadow over any possible future. The love that had just minutes ago seemed unshakable now felt fragile, built on a foundation of sand that had just been washed away by a tidal wave of truth.